Okay, we are officially live. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Our Moto dads allowed.
Dad's allowed.
Absolutely.
You're totally allowed.
That's
I
awesome.
love it.
I got the support already. This is fantastic. Fantastic. Hi, guys. Let us know in the live stream chat where you're tuning in from. I want to kind of get a feel for who's all out there watching us live tonight and even after the fact too. But want to introduce Sasha to everybody here. I'm trying to remember how I got introduced to you. And I think it was when you guys took the 2019 trip and you were down in Milwaukee at the museum. I think that's
right. I think that was, it's so funny because I wanted to ask you when it was. I was like, when was our moment that we started talking? And that is, now that you say that was the time.
It had to be because you guys were at the museum. I don't know if I was trying to make it down to some event or something that you guys were there for, or you were in connection with other people that were local to it. But that's how I found out about you guys. And then since then we've connected, and I want to joke about it now, but like our organization thing over quarantine, like we were all about it from your end and my end too.
Yes,
but it was
exactly.
Awesome. So for those that are tuning in tonight that may not be familiar about you, do you want to kind of give a little background history about yourself, my dear?
Of course. My name's Sasha, also known as Chanel Everlast. Everyone, you can call me Chanel if you want to call me Chanel. I kind of got nicknamed the name like 10, 15 years ago when I moved to Toronto. It is kind of just always stuck. It's like my alter ego, I guess, if you will. So it's like that badass girl that would do all the dangerous things and try and get away with it. So that's kind of where Chanel Everlast came from.
That's awesome.
But I'm a makeup artist. I work for L'Oreal. Been with them for over like 10 years or so.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then I've been writing I was just thinking about that today, and I think I've been writing for about 7 years now. So I'm still relatively a newbie, but
you got some miles and some time underneath.
I definitely do already. That's for sure. I started right from the get-go on my first month.
Really? So
yes.
Kind of explain that to us. Like how did the introduction to motorcycling happen for you?
Well, I grew up around cars a lot. My dad was a car guy. He was a mechanic. My grandpa worked for Ford, and my dad worked for General Motors. And so I was always kind of around that industry. But then when I got older, it was so weird. I think I remember one trip I went to Calgary by myself for work, and I walked into this. At the time, I was starting L'Oreal, and I just never felt like I fit in. I always was like this tomboy, but like I like to dress up, and it was just never like two worlds that really collided well.
To it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember this one time I walked into this pub, and it ended up being like this like biker bar, and I saw these like guys in the back and like with their cuts on and their big beards, and I was like, oh, those look like my people.
Yeah. I want to be your friend. Can you be my friend?
I so want to be their friend. I'm like, I definitely look like I would belong with them. And then it was just after that, I had lots of friends who rode. I had ex-boyfriends in the past I'd ride on the back of, and so it always seemed fun. And then it was just I had friends, I would say it time and time again every year. I'm like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna get my motorcycle license. But the thing that always stopped me was that I didn't have the money. I was like, well, where am I gonna get like $10,000 to buy a motorcycle? So what's the point of doing this? I'm not someone that's gonna start something and not finish it.
Yeah.
So one year I was like, I'm done saying I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm just gonna do it, and then I'm sure I'll find a way to get a bike. And then I did the course, found a bike, but then I was in Toronto at the time, and then I found this motorcycle that I loved, and it was in London, which is my hometown.
So how far away distances?
So technically 2 hours on the highway. So we're in kilometers, so that's like 200 kilometers.
Sure.
And so about 2 hours, and when I had done that, I hadn't even filled up a tank of gas. So I literally YouTubed how to fill up a tank of gas.
Side note for this thing,
yes.
I rented out in Maui, and it was a different brand that I'm used to. I can't remember the exact of it, but I couldn't figure out the gas cap. And I was like, I don't know how to freaking open this. So I went to YouTube and I was like, okay, someone's got to have this on there. So guilty.
Yeah.
Even to this day.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And I remember, so we have something in our area which is called the Moto Social.
Okay,
actually Moto Social is in the US now too, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Totally forgot.
Yep.
So we had the Moto Social, and I had a friend of mine say to me, he's like, the Moto Social is tomorrow, and I had already purchased this bike. And I was like, how am I getting it back to London? I kept trying to find someone to drive it back, and I was like, I can't do 2 hours yet unless someone's riding with me. And then at like 11:30 at night, he wrote me, and we're talking about this. He's like, you need the bike for tomorrow. He's like, it's the Moto Social. You'll meet everybody and you'll be in. So you just have to get it. And this was now like July 4th, and it was going to be July 5th was going to be the night. And so I was like, okay. So I bought a bus ticket for 7 o'clock in the morning, got back to London, took the bus back. I said to my mom, I'm like, I saw her and I was like, and I'm taking the bike. I'm out of here. And I just literally YouTube as I drove off. Let me tell you, I flew down the driveway, up over the neighbor's driveway, over the lawn. And I whiskey throttled the hell out of the house.
This is good confidence as you're leaving.
Yeah, exactly. I look back and I see her in the window like, oh my God, my baby. And I was like, I didn't even look back. I tried after that. I just like kept going. And then I went down the side street and then I just stopped and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Okay.
What am I doing? And then it took me 5.5 hours to get back on all the back roads.
Oh gosh. But you made it back from that.
I had no GPS. I didn't have all the stuff like our hookups and I didn't know anything, right? So I would just look on my map, look up about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, I need to go this direction.
Yeah, I'll go this way. I remember it was a right. And I did the whole way. I got back to Toronto. My eyes were bloodshot. I literally was like, oh my God, that was the most exhausting thing I've ever done. I like star dove into my bed. Then my friend calls me. He's like, all right, meet me. We're going to the social. I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
Way to throw yourself in.
Day. Yeah, that was my first day ever really riding. I went 5.5 hours on back roads all by myself, but it was perfect. It was what I needed. I've always been that learner that needs to do it by myself and not have people getting in my head and me getting confused. And it made me perfect. I felt like I was good once I got to the city. And of course I had some things to learn, but it was still a good warm-up.
Good 5-hour warm-up to get introduced to everything else. I think I would rather have it that way too than just get thrown right into the mix of it. And you're like, okay, there's all these bikes, all these people watching me. And I haven't started my bike maybe once or twice before.
I would have never known how to park. And in front of everyone at the social, ours get like, especially in Toronto, they get huge. Like apparently Toronto's like that's right. The Toronto one is almost too big to the point that they have to like secretly let out the location. Okay. That's how crazy it gets. It gets to the point that they have to do it almost like an hour or two before or something like that, because then people will show up hours before and take over the whole streets, and it just gets really crowded in Toronto.
More than what they can handle.
Exactly. But it's awesome. It's definitely the highlight in Toronto for sure.
That's crazy. So that was your first day. So leading up to it, how has it progressed since then for your sake?
I feel like it went really fast for me. It definitely was something I picked up quickly. It's always adrenaline and all that kind of stuff is my cup of tea anyway. So I picked it up pretty quickly. I was in like a women who ride. It was called a fearless shoot within my first month of riding. And I was a chosen woman rider to be in the shoot. And then during that shoot, too, I had to go on the highway for the first time, and they had no idea. I was literally like, knuckling onto my handlebars, like thought I was going to die. They were going like 140 and I'm like about 100, thinking my bike was going to blow up or something. When we got to the place, I was like, guys, I've never even been on the highway yet. But then after that, I did my first long trip within that first month. I went on a 6-hour ride, camping trip by myself. And ever since that year, I started doing that. So I always go on a 1 weekend moto camping trip by myself.
That's fantastic.
And
that's a great, I feel like you've got a really good base on the first like month and a half that most people, like, even from my end of it, like, I didn't get to that level and I'm still not even to some of those points. Like, dang, that's incredible.
I remember everyone was telling me the night before, they're like, you shouldn't do that. I had a couple guys be like, that's out of the question for a new female rider. And I was like, oh, you just said that to me? I'm going an hour earlier now.
You've got the same mentality. I'm going to prove you wrong.
Exactly. And I think ever since that comment, that's where I was like, I always wanted to just get bigger and better and longer and faster and crazier. And now I literally love it. I feel like it's exactly who I am. Like when I felt like when I walked into that pub and I was like, those are my people. I'm like, I found my people finally. And I love it.
Yes. So from your end of it, what do you currently ride? It's not the same bike as what you first started with?
So at the beginning, I had a Sportster super low. And then when Andy and I got together, he had his lowrider S.
Okay.
And we were stopped at a light and I was on my Sportster and he's on his lowrider and he goes, you wanna swap? And I was like, oh, no way. I was like, yes. I'm like, so we swap at the light. And then within 2 seconds, girl, I was like, phew. I looked in the mirror and he was like, this big behind me. And I got back to my bike on my Sportster and I was like, what the crap is up with my bike? Something's wrong with it. I was like, you did something to my bike. I know it. You purposely screwed it up. He's like, no, honey, you just rode a real bike.
It's very true. I just finally rode a 114 engine this last 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was like, dang.
Yeah. It's it'll get your heart racing. It's amazing. It's amazing. But now I have 2 weeks after that I bought a Dyna Streetbob 2013 and had that bike ready to go. I was like, and I had just got a paint job on my Sportster too, literally like a month before, and I was like, let's just take the tank off. I'll keep the tank and we'll just get a new bike.
Yep, sounds good.
And I love it. I love it. I got the paint job now.
And I've
done more cosmetic to it. I've done more cosmetic, but we'll eventually, the baby came along. And so the big kind of indulge purchases will happen a little later on now.
That's totally fine. But even what you've done with it so far, if people haven't checked it out, I put your Instagram link on here too, and you've got showcase on that. So, and I think on your website, but it's an awesome build.
It's incredible. We have, like, I had Lucky Speed. They gave, I always talk about them because I'm obsessed with my rose gold leavers from them. It's just such a sweet little detail on the bike. The paint job it doesn't even do it justice, to be honest, in pictures, because in pictures it photographs. Even Andy says he always has such a hard time with filters and stuff because it changes. But my girl Amanda, who painted it, she custom made the color where literally people will stop me when they see it in person, and sometimes as I ride by, they're like, oh, it's like a girl's pink bike, and then all of a sudden it turns like copper and has like, it kind of changes in all different lighting. So it has that. I wanted it to be rose gold, but it's so hard to replicate rose gold in a paint necessarily.
I can see that.
Exactly. Typically people, when they do the rose gold and all of that chrome stuff, right, they're always what's it called when they're don't know the word I'm looking for, but when
I'm not sure either.
losing my words right now. But anyways, it's a harder to definitely make that color, but she custom made it, and it really it really highlights nicely in the sun. It's gorgeous. Something to see in person.
Heck yeah. So local to you, or where you at? Or how?
Yeah, so local to us. She Black Widow Custom Paints is her Instagram. Her name's Amanda. She's in the Guelph area, so relatively close to us, an hour away. That's awesome. She's incredible. She does some amazing. She did my last paint job too, where she painted a Marilyn Monroe on my tank, but then has all my tattoos on Marilyn.
That's cool.
It's so sick. I'm going to advertise it because it was a while before I felt like my Instagram really kind of took off. So I'll have to bring it back so people could see it.
Heck yes. Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome. So within these years of riding, and so you just had, I say just because it probably still feels like it was a couple weeks ago, but it's not. It's been a full year for having your daughter, correct?
Yes. So March 28th, she was born of 2020. So literally like 2 weeks into this whole mayhem of what's happening in the world.
Gosh.
So we were like one of the first people having having a baby during it all. He couldn't even come up. He couldn't come
Seriously?
up at the beginning. So when I first went, he had to stay in the car. And then as they were running tests to make sure it was like the time, I could only text him what was happening and telling him what was going on. And then when they're like,
Between
okay, it's
everything
go
else that
time,
you're trying to handle, you have
yeah.
to text him your updates from that end of
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And then they're like, okay, now he can come. He can bring the bags and everything. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? He wasn't allowed to pee. He couldn't even like stick his head out for a coffee, and he's a coffee fiend. So he was dying. He's like literally sticking his head out. He's like, please, someone, a coffee. And they're like, get your son, get back in the room. Get in the room. I'm like, what is happening to us?
This is not a normal
Yes,
experience from that end of it. Well,
exactly. But a whole year it's been now, and it's actually been, you know what, it's oddly a blessing in disguise. Like, it was kind of nice that I got to, I guess, stay home and just bake in all of the goodness of her and her learning and everything everything she's about. So you know what, I would have loved to show her off as a baby and show how cute she was to everyone, but I'm sure everyone saw it through social media.
Oh yeah, that's the best way to do it. Even still, like
Exactly.
even family who are not close to you and don't have the opportunity to visit or anything like that, they're gonna want.
That's right.
social media.
Exactly.
But from your end of it, so did you have to kind of take a pause? How did motorcycling work within that realm, and even now?
I only wrote that last summer in 2020. I honestly wrote a handful of times. I was going from about 30,000 kilometers in a season to, I was lucky if I hit 5 last season. It was pretty sad, but you know what? It was weird. Andy was more so the one that was super turned off from it. He was in super dad mode, like, oh no, this is dangerous now. And I'm like, what is happening? Don't you dare change up.
This is what
This is what we've created. You cannot turn down. You can't go back on this. I'm like, we named our daughter Ryder. Come on.
Yes.
But I honestly, I didn't even really care. It was a couple times I did go out, and it felt so good. It was just, I remember when I got home after like a 10-hour ride. That was like the longest. I only did like one really long day, and after that, it was just. You almost forget though how much you're gassed after a ride.
Yes,
like, we build stamina when we're doing these rides all day, like throughout the whole summer. And then just to take time off, you don't realize how much you lose in riding. I know you're just sitting there, but you really need that. You need the power. You need your concentration. It's so much that goes into it that. Oh, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
So
but
it probably beat you up a little bit for that first one.
It definitely did. And even Andy's finding it, because he didn't ride a lot last year. Like I said, he wasn't super into it. Yeah. But he's been picking it up again now. But he even said after 2 hours, he's like, how the crap did we ride to Sturgis in 2019? How the hell did we do that? He's like, I'm like gassed after 2 hours now. I'm like,
so kind of explain that trip, because I know we mentioned it in the first part of the live stream, but like, how did that come about? Has that been done before for you guys? What did you guys?
No, so that was in the winter during down season, just thinking, planning out like what was going to happen next summer. And we had a bunch of people in our group of friends and stuff talk about it. But you know, everyone talks about an idea, then you're like in a group chat of 15 people going, and then you're like 4 people cancel out, and then 2 people cancel out, and then by the end it was like Andy and and I think one other person, and then they're like, well, this would be weird if I tag along with you two. So we're like, and so he's like, I'll let you guys do your thing. We're like, you know what? Let's just do it anyways.
Why not?
So we started planning it, I think like November of 2018, essentially. Yep. And then we pretty much planned it all out. And then for July 19th date was what we were planning to leave. Midsummer, we were going to take like a whole month to do that trip.
Dang.
And then everything was working out perfectly, into the exception that the day before we left, I found out I was pregnant. So as that weekend, we had to drive to London to drop my cats off to my mom. As we're driving back, I'm like, I think my boob has its own pulse right now. Something's going on. And then literally at the Dollarama, I took a pregnancy test home, and it just for a joke. And then the day before, we're sitting there like, what are we supposed to do? We have literally our bikes were loaded, everything was on, gas tanks on, or backup, sorry, the cans as well. Everything was set. We're like, do we literally cancel everything? Both our families were telling us, do not do this. You're absolutely crazy.
This is before they found, did they find out? Or
so we had told, because we were leaving the next day, we had to literally we lost the fun surprise of telling everybody and whatnot, but we just had to tell them because we were like, what the crap are we supposed to do at this point? Give us advice. And then they were telling us no, and we were like, we don't want your advice. We're going on the trip.
This is not the answer we were hoping for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we literally still packed up and we just like went. And I said to myself, I'm like, how fast could this kick in? Like, we just found out. Like, come on. And then we got to London that night. We thought we would just chill, tell my mom, and kind of like get the news going. And then the next morning we left, and on our way Windsor to Detroit. Right on, I think closer to Windsor, garbage truck had passed me. Then all of a sudden I was like, oh
God.
Man, I think it's starting real soon. I was deathly ill the whole time.
Holy crap.
No one has a clue. I tried so hard. Obviously, it was the beginning, so I didn't want to Instagram it. I was Instagramming that I was incredibly hungry, so later on, people were always like, what? Something was up. You were eating a lot. And so, but it was just, the first week was the tiredness. I was just, we would ride about a half hour, and you know how much energy you need. It was like, I'd be a half hour in, and I was literally like,
shot.
I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I'm going down. I'm going down hard. And we would just keep pulling over almost every half hour to 45 minutes.
Oh, so that just made the trip longer in that sense. But
long. So we had so many more stops planned, and we had to change everything. We were like, you know what? Why don't we just go with the flow, and we'll just kind of instead of, we wanted to dip real south, actually. That was more our plan. So we wanted to go Pittsburgh to, what was our second stop? Pittsburgh. I know Andy's just biggest thing. He really wanted Utah, which I was like, I don't think we can make it all the way to Utah. You're crazy.
It would be worth it.
Of me right now. I know that's still on that's our major like must do trip. So that's going to be a trip on its own.
Good.
But what was it? New Mexico was where he really wanted to get to, and I was like,
I just said, would pretty much went.
He wanted to just dip and then go back up, and then immediately we were like, let's revisit this. I'm like, we're gonna need to stay close, because if something is to go negative, I'm like, we're gonna need to be close to the border. So we just tried to skim the border the whole time, essentially, and then try to do like what I always see what you do as well, where we were working with people on Instagram being like, where should we go next? We can go here, Iowa, or we can go over this way, and so people were working. It was so much fun. Like, it was such a riot. People that we've talked to through social media, we became finally able to connect. Good friends. Like, I mean, they're like my family now, especially when we were in Minnesota. We met like a few group of girls and friends there that I just love them so dearly. And it's so weird. It was like that one trip, and I like consider them my close friends, and I'm like, I miss them so much.
That's perfect.
So it's just so cool how we all get together in different places. We all meet. It's amazing.
But you rallied through that entire month.
Pretty much. Once we got to Sturgis, that was when it really kicked in. And that was the unfortunate thing, because by that point, I just wasn't having fun anymore. That was when I was really starting to I was puking almost every hour, the whole day, almost to the point that I let Andy go like partake in a whole bunch of fun games and do his fun. And I just literally just slept, and I just laid there. And so it was, you know what? It was the best experience of my life. And I'm glad I fought through it all. And I have the stories to tell, but it was also the worst time of my life. Like, literally. And then it was more the way coming home. Once Sturgis was done, I was done.
Yes. Because mentally you're like, that was probably the last checklist of everything.
That's right.
Like, crap, we got to make it home.
That's right. And it was still about 24 hours straight we had to still get home. So I made it 10 hours I made it 10 hours going North Dakota up to Manitoba, which is where Andy's family is originally from.
Okay, good.
And so we went up there, and once I got there, I was like, I was counting down the hours to the minutes. Once we got there, I literally looked at him. I'm like, I'm done. That is it. And I am not riding back to Ontario, so that's not happening. And so it was a bit of a nightmare on the way back, because to trailer bikes, one way, get a rental car, one way, was just, we ended up spending almost like over $3,000 just to get us home.
Yeah.
It really sucked. I wish I could have stuck through. I hate being a quitter, but I couldn't do it. I physically couldn't do it.
No,
but Sturgis was amazing, and I'm doing that trip again, not pregnant.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
That's the plan. That's the plan. But it was honestly wicked.
That's
I think the Milwaukee part was actually one of the most killer nights, because we rode in from Chicago, and it was a bike night at the museum.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And that was the time, I think, right?
Yeah.
And I literally was, when Andy and I saw it online, we're like, no way. And then we rode in, and we had our Cena headsets on, and we were just like, all of a sudden, we're like, this is the most bitchin' event ever.
God, I missed these events.
How did we just ride in on this? It was
the have timed it perfectly.
Yeah. We still tell the story, because even as we rode out, Andy, he's always practicing his wheelies, and he had wheelied right as he was leaving the museum, and no one was with us. He's like, you are the only person to tell this story.
Well, now everybody else that's listening is able to hear it.
It happened. It happened. I was behind him. I was like, I saw it. But it was honestly a wicked trip. Something I have to do again, like I said, but just not pregnant.
Yeah.
I need my strength again for it.
I don't know how you did it. Like, I didn't get to the point of being sick, but I was just mentally and physically exhausted. Doing normal routine stuff. Like, that was it. So trying to do a whole month-long riding trip with your husband, like, girl, props.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I think that goes down in the books as like my most successful, or like my strongest moment. Definitely. I can tell that story forever. I feel like that one even trumps having a baby.
It does. It does. I think so. Like, that goes above everything else.
I think it does go above.
And you can even share, for your daughter's sake, like, you have been riding pretty much since.
Exactly. I'm like, you were on that trip with us.
I guess.
It was wicked. It was wicked. But it sucks now, just in the sake of like having such like an epic trip like that to like turn off. Yeah. Yeah. So that took definitely some adjusting. 100%.
Yeah.
It's still hard.
I know. Like,
How
I'm
old
sure
are
you
your
guys.
Kids?
So 7, and she'll be 3 in June from my end of it. So they're still quite young, like not even to the part where they can hang out on the back. Like, my daughter, every time we pull into the garage, though, she's up on my bike, just sitting there.
She's
like,
all involved, eh? Like, she's waiting for her chance.
But like last year, she's the complete opposite. So when we turned on our bikes, granted, my husband has very loud exhaust on his, and I could see where it could scare her, but like she would not get even down the bike. So when I tried to take pictures of, there goes my camera now.
There's yours.
But when we tried to take pictures of just the two of them with me on the bike, she wouldn't go anywhere near it. So it's nice to have that change in her where she's not afraid of it, and she's willing to jump on the bike and just hang out. Like, I think I caught an Instagram video of her just pretending to pull the throttle back and like drive. So I'm glad it made that turn, but for mine,
that's what I still wonder. Like, we wonder, right? Like, we've named her Ryder, and we have this bond that me and him share together, and we hope that she would be involved and enjoy. But and it's something I don't also want to force our likes and our interests onto her. But if she's into it, that would just be incredible and so awesome. That she'd be into it and want to like and ride her to school, and I think it'd just be super cool. So I hope she's into it, but we'll see. My mom got her this little like scooter toy with like a sidecar. And when she's seen it, she was like, oh my God, it's the cutest thing ever. And it revs. Like it actually has a motorcycle rev, not like a Vespa rev. It has an actual motorcycle rev. Girl is terrified of it. If I rev that bike, she screams bloody murder. And I'm like, no way. This cannot be. I'm like, it's the Vespa. It's the Vespa. Once she hears the Harley, it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. Yeah. Give her a little bit. Maybe it'll change just like my daughter will.
It's a little early. Exactly. I think they're so young. Like you said, I think it can be a startling noise. So we still have time.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's not something that you want to push. And like for mind of it, for my son, he's 7. I don't push trying to ride or doing anything like that, but he will constantly ask, like, now that it's summer, he goes, oh, so I can dirt bike. Like people are asking him, what are you going to do for summer? What sports? He goes, I'm going to ride dirt bikes. And I was like, oh crap, we need to get a dirt bike. Or I need to find more classes for him. So yeah, remind of it. That's the push that I need, that like it's coming from his mouth. It's not something where I'm asking him to do it. If he wants to like partake in it, absolutely. But if it's something where he doesn't want to do it anymore, it's like the same with sports. Like we're going to finish out the season and we're going to follow through with what we're done. But if you don't want to do it next year, then we'll find something else that you'll enjoy. So
awesome. I love that. It's honestly exactly how we want to play it as well. I want her to have whatever her own interest is. And that's what I'm so excited just to learn is what she is interested in. That's the fun part.
So this first full year of riding, and you've had a handful of times that you were able to kind of get away from quarantine and everything else like that and ride. What is something that you're kind of like looking forward to? I know we kind of discussed back end of it for what you're able to do, what you're not able to do, but like what are you looking forward to for the rest of this year? Is there big things in mind from your end?
For this year, to be quite honest, riding hasn't been like, we don't have like major riding plans, but being in London, Ontario now, I actually haven't had my motorcycle over here. Andy hasn't really rode around here, so it is all new roads. So we have a couple things plans of just like kind of riding the different lakes and the coastlines and stuff, and we'll try a couple things that way. But other than that, nothing too epic.
Maybe a podcast.
Maybe.
I can totally see you doing one of those.
I'm a talker. I should be on radio or something. I can ramble on, girl. I told you we will hit your max limit of timing.
We're totally good from my end of it too. But I want to shout out too, and anybody that's on the live stream right now too. If you have questions for Sasha, please put them in the comments too, and we can definitely go through those. But yes, I know it's a natural conversation between the two of us, and having everybody hang out in the live chat too. I love it. It's a great Tuesday night for mine.
Andy knew right away when I was showing him your videos and stuff, because he knows you from Instagram, but I don't think he's seen too many of your YouTubes. And so we saw your YouTubes and all your chatting. He's like, oh, no issue. You guys will be great. He's like, we've been watching too much British TV lately, and so they always talk about banter being good conversation and good flow, and so that's been something where he's like, you guys will have incredible banter, don't worry.
Plus my Midwest accent just helps everything.
It helps everything. I do love it.
I don't notice it, but then I look back at it and I'm like, oh, dang it. All right.
I do hear it from time to time, and a couple words you're saying, I catch it, and I love it though.
Okay.
How was riding in Hawaii?
It was interesting. I loved it. Just a completely different feel. So if you mentioned, if you get a chance to go out to Utah, I loved being out in Zion. There's more north that I wanted to touch that I haven't even had a chance to, but I loved it. And so for my end of it, it was like that, but green, lush green, especially. And then you get 2 or 3 miles down the road and you're right on the edge of the ocean. It's crazy to think about.
Did you ride Maui or Oahu?
I rode Oahu and I rode Maui. So I did the extra COVID test, paid for it and everything just to go to Maui for a full day. Awesome. So I left that morning and I came back that night because flights were pretty reasonable and I could make it work within the 8 hours that I was able to have the bike. So yeah. I love it.
my first winter. So after my first season riding, my parents
Mhm.
at my parents, my grandparents had a place in Hawaii. So we used to go
Okay.
all the time when we were younger. And so we went that Christmas, me, my mom, and sister, and it was my first season riding. So I did ride a bike. I
Did
rode
you?
Oahu. I just wasn't as adventurous in the sake where I was so green, so I didn't like
So
research and
where did
do.
you
And
go?
that's where I'm gonna say I didn't research. I don't know, girl. I don't know where I was essentially though on the coastline
Okay.
the most part. So the
Yep.
ride that I'm always used to doing with my family, we always like I saw it in your vlog where with
Mhm.
like the little cutouts and the overlooks
Overlooks
and
of it all.
everything.
Yep.
Exactly. So I remember doing all that, having the mountain on my left and the
Mhm.
ocean on the right. But then it did get to a couple points where it's like it's one lane, right? So it's like it was so much traffic. I was
Yes.
literally in a standstill over. I'm like, well, this is not fun. This just took out all of my excitement. I'm like, I just want
People
to rip.
people don't realize, I think it's like second to LA as far as traffic goes. Like just
Is it really?
yeah. So when we were there for pretty much a full month and I got to experience some of the traffic, like it would take you 30 to 40 minutes to go 10 miles.
That's right.
Like
Oh my
it was a little
gosh.
crazy. So like at least I did it during a weekday and then
Yeah.
I planned things out according to like how traffic flows. Like people are trying to go up to North
So
Shore, people are
smart.
coming
So
down to
smart.
Waikiki. So I tried to do the things that most
Yep.
of the traffic isn't there and then come back and try to do it.
Right.
But even still, yeah.
Clever. It's just I know that there was like that kind of part, but then I saw a couple your roads that were so beautiful. Then a couple like when we went to Lanikai Beach, I wish I would have rode that day because I just remember the roads were just so epic. And it, like you said, it was just so much green that it was just the road and green everywhere, and I was just in shock
And
the
you
whole
don't like you
time.
don't realize how tall those mountains are with all that greenery too. Like
Yes.
it just makes it feel not as big as what it
That
normally is. I don't
yeah.
know how to describe it. Like
Yeah,
even showcasing
exactly.
it on GoPro footage, I was like, this does not do it justice.
It doesn't do it justice at all. I was really lucky though. I met a guy at the shop.
Mm-hmm.
Being a like every motorcyclist, I get there, another
You
guy,
make
he's
connections.
there getting his bike, and he's like, so where are you off to? And I was like, I don't know, I'm gonna go to the North Shore. I'm thinking, he's like, you want to go together? And I was like, let's go together. And so he was, I think, Hawaiian and Japanese.
Okay.
And so he has family there and he's like, amazing, I'm going to go visit my family in the North Shore. So come with me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm getting the local tour. This is incredible. It was awesome.
Exactly
We
what you
stopped at
need.
local huts and got food and it was just
Mhm.
incredible. I was so thankful to have met him and like have his stories. And that's the part of riding that I love. That's
Absolutely.
literally exactly what I love. And that was even before getting into motorcycles. That's what I love is I love talking to strangers and having random
Getting to know.
conversations with them and learning things and from them and what they've observed throughout their lives.
Yes.
And then motorcycling, I feel like just took it to a whole nother
Totally
level
love because those
because
people just are, for mind of it, just
yeah.
have something else to provide from.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I love hearing people's stories. So that's I think the thing that gets me into riding so much, but then it also I find that's why I want to force myself more to ride alone. Like I love
Mhm.
riding with friends and of course you do so much, but I feel like I have more of those
Experience.
experiences when I'm
Yes.
alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I try and force myself, like I said, to do all those camping trips and whatnot because when I do camping trips solo, things happen during those trips that are like my most epic stories. So I try and force myself. It is such a even for me, it's outside my
Mhm.
comfort zone, but
Okay.
that's when I find still like the best stories happen.
I guess. Well,
Yeah.
we got questions from the side chat, and I'm going to pull up a couple of them. Someone asked, who introduced you to motorcycles? Is there someone specifically? No, we kind of
So
touched on this.
my very first time with a motorcycle was a friend of mine in Toronto. He rode, and so we used to rip around like our highways, which were like looped around and just on off exits all the time. And
Yeah.
that was my first experience ever on a motorcycle. I just remember the rush of it, and ever since I was like, one day, one day.
Then Rachel asked, question: how were you able to find your individuality within a family of individuals?
That's my cousins. That's my cousin.
Look at that! I feel like that's a very like in-depth question. I was like, it has to be so.
And that's my in-depth cousin for sure. She always asks the deep stuff, and I love it. But it's so true. Everyone in my family, like especially on my mom's side of the family, everyone is so unique in their own ways, and everyone has such loud personalities that it was hard for me because I felt like when I lived in London growing up, it's such a small town. I felt like I was lost here, and I felt like I found more of my individuality once I left and I was on my own. I just felt like I always excelled the best when I'm by myself. I don't know why. I just feel like those best moments and when I'm not afraid to be myself is when I'm by myself, and then I get my confidence, and then I feel like that's when I like go out into the world and take on whatever I'm doing, whether it's work or riding. Especially
from that end of it. I think one of the last ones, do you have any friends or family? And then do you ever watch us female Canadian vloggers here on YouTube?
Oh. So do you have any other friends and family in Calgary? So I have like old high school friends in Calgary. So every time I go to Calgary, I'm always meeting them. But if anything, I have more friends who ride in Edmonton, if anything. We have a bunch of like one of our girlfriends who ran the Litas here in Toronto. She just moved out to Edmonton now. But I have a whole group of girls out west that I'm dying to do more rides with, because whenever they've come out east, you know, when you just like, I said it a long time ago when I met two girls, Joanna and Kate. These two, Kate was the one who ran the Litas here in Toronto, and then Joanna's out in I think she's in Calgary, or she's in Edmonton. Edmonton, I believe. Anyways, but those two girls, I met them 2 years ago before Rider, and I always knew like going for rides was one thing, but then there was always something I still felt like I was missing. I'm like, I didn't feel like I was riding on the same page as other people, because everyone rides differently and has their flow, or the speed they like to ride, or the roads they like to ride and whatnot. And it wasn't until I met these two girls that when we went on a ride, we went to Montreal, a bunch of us on a it was called Roll the Bones in Montreal, big motorcycle event there. And so we all took off and went there, and I had these two girls with me, and they rode exactly like me. I was leading the pack, and then all of a sudden, Kate comes up next to me, and she gives me one of these. And I was like, oh, we going. So we start flying. And then I see in my rearview mirror, Joanna come flying up behind me. And then we're just like mobbing the three of us on the highway. And like the rest of our crew's so far back. And I'm like, oh my God, I love these girls. They're so freaking awesome. And I only got that one freaking ride with them. And I was like, it's like holds a place in my heart, because it's so different when you find people who do ride the way you ride. And so it's just, I just felt like that sticks in my head as such an epic ride, because I felt like I was like super free, and I had people doing what I was doing, and I wasn't trying to like slow down for other people or speed up for others. It was awesome. So that goes down in the books with those two girls. But I try to stick within the motorcycle community, and especially within the women riders. And so I've been working with Delacroix.
I saw that.
I got to be their 2021 ambassador this year, so I'm super pumped for that, because my year off, I was been watching Delacroix for the last little bit, and like watching how she's rose in the community, and just everything she stands for. And it was just something that I was like, you know what? I kind of need something like this to like reignite some inspiration in my life again. And I literally that was my speech to her when I talked to her. And she's like, you know what? That's exactly what a mom needs right now. And so it's awesome. And that's what I'm all about, is women empowerment. And I think that's a huge movement right now. And I really, really love it. I'm all about the women. So I think it's super cool to see how many women are riding though too now. It's awesome.
Exactly. And this is for my end of it, just kind of taking even a step further. I know it doesn't shine a lot of light as far as us being parents too, and still wanting to do some of this stuff. So like, this is why exactly I'd love having you on here to kind of share your experiences, what you're feeling, and just kind of relating with those people that are watching this live and watching this after the fact too.
And that's something I've learned very quickly being a new mom is hearing stories from other moms and what they're going through and how they've handled things. And and even hearing how you're juggling things and all the things you're doing, I'm like, damn, I need to like pick it up and like get a few things on my calendar again, because I am being a little lazy in comparison to you, girl.
Not at all. Not at all.
But in my mind, I'm still on mat leave, so I'm kind of still like hands up and feet up. So,
oh, dude, totally.
I got a couple more months.
Yeah, within that first full year of having my daughter, too, I had her in June, and even then, like, I didn't feel 100% like, okay, go time until like 2020, pretty much.
Right.
So from my end of it, that's where I just kind of took off. But you kind of have to go at your own pace. But has like motorcycling changed, like as far as being a mom, made you better in certain ways? Have there been certain things that have stuck out for you?
Well, I don't know if being a woman, I do, at least for me in my mind, being a woman, I've always, from the day of getting a motorcycle, I always have the fear of like, this is dangerous and anything can happen. And so I've always had those thoughts, but I won't lie, having her now, I do like, when I'm leaving, I give all my deep kisses and deep hugs and hard hugs. And you do never know. And it's, in life in general, everything could be taken away from us. But now I do just find those moments. So like when my mom used to say goodbye to me when I was leaving, now
it's
like, I'll be fine, Mom, don't worry. And I'm like 34 years old. I'm like, I will be fine.
Yeah, I'm good.
Now I'm like, I see my daughter and I'm like, oh my God, Ryder, I love you so much. Mommy will be back, I promise. So I won't lie. I do find that has kind of changed me, where I get a little nervous, and even Andy and I were saying, like, now we just ride and enjoy it even more. We're not like messing around like we kind of used to. And so we just don't do any of that anymore. Now we're almost at the point where I'm like, I might need a bagger soon.
No.
But you know what? When I was doing the Harley Canada, the Softail tour,
yes,
I rode a few and I was having a blast. Girl, I just felt like I was on a sofa bed just cruising. I'm like, now I understand why people love baggers.
Exactly. Like, I was just so naive when I rode my Sporty, and then I started renting all of these other bikes, and I was like, dang. Now I can see why you guys like it. Exactly. But at the same time, like, if you want that sort of ride, then that makes sense. But if you want this other sort of ride, then that makes sense. If we could all have multiple vehicles in our garage for certain things, oh geez.
And that would have been perfect. Like I did that, I think the month after we came back from that long trip to Sturgis.
Okay.
And I remember just thinking like, oh my God, could you have imagined if we rode those? The Street Glide all the way to friggin' Sturgis, my shoulders would have been so chill because I'm all the way up here. I don't have cruise control like Andy does. So Andy's just like chilling like this, relaxing his arms. I'm like, my shoulders need a break, please.
You can't quite do.
Exactly. So I know even Andy's like, maybe lower the bars a little bit now and just get to a more comfortable position and just enjoy the ride a bit more. So I feel like that's been our mentality change since becoming parents, for sure.
I guess that's awesome. I know you enjoy it, you soak it in a lot more because those moments aren't as prevalent maybe as what they were before, but you take full advantage of them, at least from my end of it. If I get a day, because I got a day to ride out in Maui, I was like, I'm waking up at 4 a.m.
That's right. That's right. Right now, it's been nice having family, being in where my family is. So now we have full support. Where I'm like, Mom, you're home. You got her from like 12 to 5 because I'm gonna go for a ride.
She needs grandma time. She needs some grandma time for that.
So we've been fortunate already. It's only been a month, and I've had at least 6 or 7 rides. So it's been pretty awesome. And it's spring and I was riding in a tank top already. Like,
Seriously?
I didn't even know. We had, so London, Ontario gets like freakishly warm weather here. So no one else in the areas were getting it. And they're like, you're just wearing a tank top riding just to rub it into other people. It can't possibly be that warm. I'm like, it's friggin' warm.
Oh, dang.
I was hot. Like I had a watch tan. And so we've had a couple good days, but now it's been like rain for about 2 weeks. So we've been tucked away for a little bit. So hopefully summer will start soon.
Yes. And then you can get out and ride for sure.
Yeah. Try and get at least 10,000 in this year, at least.
Okay.
Please.
Yes. It should happen. If you've got it in mind already, it's going to happen. I know what like your history of what motorcycling is and how it's become. You're going to have no problem doing that, my dear.
I hope so. I hope so. I'm sure with this start, I think we'll be good for the rest of the season.
I guess. Well, that's awesome. Well, I don't want to stop, but I really should from my end of it because I still hear my kiddos upstairs. One of them was in the bathroom from my end of it. So I might have to pop out, but I want to thank you again for being on here. It was amazing just to hear your insight, get to know you, have others be introduced to what you are, who you are, what you do, all of that rolls into your powerhouse.
Thank you for inviting me onto your page and your channel, and I really appreciate it. And like I said, I do appreciate to be involved as for one in the motorcycle community, but now as well in the Moto Mom community.
Heck yes. Glad to have you. But if any of you want to follow along, I've got her links in the description of this video. Make sure to kind of just check her out and see what she's all about. But again, thank you, my dear, and we will talk soon.
Kindly. Absolutely.
I'll be back. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night.